Welcome to the Cyber Call, the podcast by Ride It Boom for managed service providers looking to stay ahead in an ever-changing world of cybersecurity. Each week, we dive into the latest threats, trends, and real-world strategies to help MSPs protect their clients and grow their businesses. Let's build a safer, stronger community together.
Oh, welcome. And happy Monday to you all. Good to see everybody out there. Tina, Eric, Mike, and everybody. Thanks for joining us as always. It's a beautiful, bright one here in Tampa, Florida. Finally, we've been inundated by rain, which I can't complain because it was really dry for a while. So anyway, let's start off with a bit of banter as we let folks join on in with us today and then we'll introduce our special guests. So one of the things I wanted to chat about since we have Alan McDonald with us today, the president and CEO of All Connected out of Simi Valley, California, was the following article. And let me pull this up. Alan, you and I have been talking quite a bit about water municipalities. It's one of your focuses as an MSP, one of your verticals. And seemingly, again, this is a area that, according to threat research, is where Iran seems to be targeting right now. Again, I don't have attribution to this, but some of the articles are certainly referring to the 30 some odd municipalities attacked in Minnesota. And now, these PLC devices of Rockwell looks seemingly, Alan, having just straight up internet exposure and ports that can allow unauthenticated paths right into the devices. Maybe, Alan, to kick things off, and I'll put this link in. One, can you talk about the importance of the PLCs and this focus of OT that you and the company focus on? And, with water being obviously one of the most critical of our critical infrastructure, what you're thinking and how you're working with your customers right now.
Yeah, it's just the isolation of these networks is just so important. And I think what happens in every organization, definitely included in that is water and energy and others, is the demand or the drive to provide remote access to critical employees and engineers that need to maintain and update that infrastructure. And as you have that drive to introduce, remote operability, with that comes risk. And so how you develop the access control to such an important environment is absolutely crucial. And depending on the sophistication at some of these organizations, you can have gaps. Depending on how they're segmented, you can have significant gaps in that. So it's as I read through that article too in the Hacker News and the associated FBI InfraGard articles, a lot of it comes back down to that. How are you developing the access control lists and ensuring that only authorized communication can happen between those isolated critical OT networks?
Alan, these PLCs, can you explain what they are briefly? And, in general, when you talk water and energy, the importance of these tools, what they monitor, everything from, we in Tampa here had a pretty frightening incident several years ago because these, when you talk about these systems, they add certain amounts of lye, aka acid, into water to clean it. And, this is not a good thing if you have a threat actor all of a sudden now, saying, well, let's up that lye a little bit, right, into the water supplies.
Yeah. So this PLCs are programmable logic controllers, control things like you mentioned. They can end up increasing or decreasing chemical doses. They can open valves, they can close valves. They can do all kinds of operations at at a mechanical level. And so gaining access or control to those PLCs can cause all kinds of unwanted incidents. One of the bigger ones too in Florida was that old Mar Water District. I think that's the one you're referring to. Where the chlorine levels were set to 80x of normal. That's those are levels that are going to do more than kill goldfish in ponds, right? That become a real major public risk. And so, as well as the control of water or the stress you can put on a water system. So programmable logic controllers really need to be, isolated. And there's a lot of work that's been done. In some cases, they are built as completely separate networks. The danger, again, comes to, when those are integrated.
Yeah. It's almost like when we get a ransomware incident, Alan, and you cringe and go, wait, the backups weren't segmented, right? It's kind of that same oh shit moment, so to speak, which is technical, Steve, as we know. Steve, any thoughts on this? You guys, obviously in California as well with Alan, I know you guys focused on vineyards and things of that nature, but when you think agriculture, this has implications too, right? Maybe groundwater and things that could be, we're not maybe consuming directly as water, but through agriculture implications as well.
Yeah, actually, we have a ton of our pesticide tanks, farms, equipment. They're all Internet of Things now, right? And we all know that the S in Internet of Things stands for security. So it's absolutely the case, right? We've had a couple of vineyards come to us and be concerned about, hey, what happens if something gets into our chemical dosing or something gets into our water supply? It's another big deal. Alan's right. If chlorine got up in Napa, that would be real bad. That chlorine's a really good biocide. So yeah, we have the same types of concerns, right? There's segmentation is a really, really important thing. We're actually working on a whole network segmentation project right now for a vineyard because of this exact thing. And so hackers getting in more than just data and more than just identity nowadays, right? Actual systems, which is kind of a reversion, right? It used to be computers, then it was humans, now it's computers again, because we're not keeping up with security. And I think Leroy's going to talk about how we're not really quite keeping up as fast as we could, especially in the AI age too. So yeah, we're super worried about that too.
Yeah. So Jonathan, close us out here. What do you hear? You run in circles with your biggest partners, right? Running the customer advisory board and things of that nature. One, are you seeing, companies on the positive focusing more on critical infrastructure from the standpoint of operational technologies, or OT as it's called, in the area that Alan's saying? And are you hearing anything in particular in this area? Any thoughts from your perspective?
I think that it's not necessarily anything new, right? But I do think that MSPs, there is a maturing that has been happening the last decade. I mean, with people focusing specifically on these more vulnerable verticals or verticals that have heavier compliance requirements. And so the good news here is that I think you have a growing number of MSPs who are really helping companies hit these marks. That's where always my head goes at, is that, hey, we've got a lot of good people out there who are really starting to focus more, leveling everyone up. And so I think that's the kind of silver lining. But yeah, whenever I see things like this in that article, I mean, I don't have a lot of familiarity with this space. Certainly nothing anywhere close to Stephen or Alan. But I mean, I think about how you can still look at some of the ransomware reports, and I mean, we all laugh about it. It's been this way forever, but exposed RDP is still a huge thing for people. I saw in the article, they were seeing a lot of those, a chunk of those devices were discontinued back in 2022. And so just, it goes back to the boring basics, right? Of just being able to have actual discovery. What's actually on your network? What are the devices that have been forgotten about that should be replaced? And really making sure that you're doing the basic segmentation, not exposing the things you shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, it's a great segue. First of all, Leor, I can't imagine anybody in the multi-billion billions of devices of Microsoft, anybody would run an OS that's, been, sunset, right? No one ever, runs anything like that, right?
Never.
But and I couldn't agree with you more. Protect the vineyards. That maybe we should have a 17th.
There's a line in the sand there.
Yeah.
You can't cross that one.
Even maybe there should be a 17th critical infrastructure.
100%, 100%. CAS IGV.
Yeah. Vino as a new standard. All right. So getting into today, right? So, AI, right? We know it has become, the thing everyone is talking about. But I wanted to kind of take it a little bit differently today. And our guest, Lior Bella, allows us to do that. And, one of the things, in Lior, he'll share his new role. We all have come to know and love Lior as, the global director of Intune previously. And Lior, I can't thank you enough for where often, Microsoft seems untouchable, to MSPs of our size. You literally opened up the kimono, traveled all over the world, whether it was an event in the Netherlands with Kelvin, whether it was at Boom in Las Vegas, etc. And so we wanted to get your take now that you've taken on this new role at Microsoft of AI security on some, topics, everything from go-to-market to what's preventing progress. But we'll open up the floor to you and talk to us a little bit about who you are, what you do, for those that out there that may not know you.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you for inviting me, a long-time listener, first-time caller. So I absolutely excited to be here. Yes, for context, many know me from my Intune life. Is the image behind me, Mr. Intune, has been a part of my life for the past 5 years or so. However, a strategic decision in my career has shifted, and as of July 1st, I actually took a new role in our Microsoft security leadership team. I focus right now with working with our products and our GTM teams to make sure that we're bringing the best products and the fastest way and most secure way to our customers. So our main focus right now is not only to preach AI, is to also help customer adopt AI and get the latest AI tools as soon as possible. And with that mindset, we're shifting away from thinking about what's going to happen in a year or even in 6 months from now. And we start thinking about what's going to happen in the next few weeks to few months. And it's a big mindset from a change from Microsoft security perspective. But I'm very excited to be part of it. However, I do want to emphasize, because my PR team is here, is to make sure that today I'm going to speak on behalf of myself and my expertise, and not on behalf of my employer in this case.
Yeah, absolutely. So out there, feel free to, the attendees watching, feel free to, shoot in any types of questions. Lior, I do want to kick it off to Jonathan, but as I do, I just love your thoughts on the last thing you mentioned. In many cyclical tech cycles we've been through, cloud, you name it, right? There was this ability to almost have that crossing the chasm moment from the classical book, right? You had your early adopters. You might have a company like Insight be an early adopter to technology. And then, over time, years, right? And we saw this with managed services, years it took MSPs to come across. This is, like you said, this is weeks. Changes are happening daily, weekly. Models are changing daily, weekly. Government regulation, right? Export controls are daily, weekly. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this in a technology cycle, have we?
Not from what I experienced, at least in my career. It's definitely a game changer because unlike that we usually have our documentations and we know what direction that we are going, here the documentation is being written on the go. So we are all catching up with the technology. And you can see regulatory and governments are changing and slowly adopting rules. And we saw them taking a big step into blocking a new AI model, which is something that was, wow, government gets involved in something like that. But this is something new to us. We see how it's impacting our workforce. We see how it's impacting our security. We see a lot of those news pieces shifting around all of this AI. Every day it's AI. There is a new model. Every single day, someone launch a new model, and this is the AI that's going to change the world. This is the one media really likes to pick on it. But if you want to take out the noise, clear the noise, understand that, yes, the level of AI that is in the news, yes, definitely generate a lot of viewership and advertisement, commercial revenue. However, it's also generating a new mindset. It's a mindset that understands that that's it. We are not the humans per se, not anymore in the leads per se. AI is advancing really fast. And we as professionals, security, IT professionals, and even individuals in our home need to stay up to date and catch up with it to understand what is coming and what is already available. Because I'll be honest, I live, breathe AI, and from the moment that I wake up, I listen to podcasts, I get my AI summaries, I read the news, I read everything. And every time that I get into a new tool, and every time I get to a new model, it's like, oh my God, it's like mind-blowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be the new standard of everything new, mind-blowing. So if you are an IT or security expert, don't hold off. Like, this is not something that, let me wait for it to mature a little bit, stop with the hallucination and things like that. It's too late. You have to, in order to catch up, you probably don't need an AI to help you to catch up with that. So
Fair. So Jonathan, as I hand you the questions, one thing I thought about, I heard this conversation about someone talking about Steve Jobs, and one of the things he was the greatest at was signal to noise, they call it. He was so good at cutting out the noise. This is an area where we're going to have to really figure out what's the signal here every single day as MSPs, more than ever, I think, than, to stay focused. Because and I say this lovingly to everybody on here, we are an industry that can quickly, that's exciting. That's exciting. And staying focused on really what's important is now more critical than ever. What are your thoughts as I hand it to you, my friend?
I would love to respond, but squirrel. No, exactly. Like it's and I think it's also completely understandable when, like we were just talking about, the headlines are coming hot and heavy all the time. There's so much hype around everything, and so it's definitely being driven up, right? There's a ton of noise out there. So yeah, Lior, I'm thank you so much again for being here. I'm so excited. It's not every day you get an opportunity to talk with someone who has such, with Microsoft. I mean, I know you're here personally, but Microsoft, I mean, you have such a awesome, huge reach in terms of the impact that adjustments can make, right? And the new tooling that you're releasing. I think about security controls, right? I'm a huge fan of the attack surface reduction rules and everything like that. But these improvements that Microsoft can make that have such a huge impact on making everyone safer. Super cool. So I know there's limits to what you can talk about there, but I guess I'm curious in a more general way, when we talk about secure AI adoption, where your head goes at, and whether, I guess, how much of it, because where my head goes is immediately, okay, there's new tooling, new capabilities being provided. How do we need to lock those down? What are the defaults that it's shipping with it that maybe you want to tweak, or maybe you want to close down in a little bit of a way? Maybe you want to segment. So that's kind of where I go with it. But when you think about secure AI adoption, how much of it is that versus something that I'm not even thinking about?
Yeah, so That's a great question. And I'll tell you something that I think there is some sort of a misconception around it, in the sense of like there are new tools and new things that we need to change. We've been preaching for forever cloud native, zero trust framework. Those are the things that we still need to focus as a foundation and as a baseline. This is something that's extremely important in order to move and secure your organization. Now, when we talk about zero trust, we talk about identity, we talk about less privilege, we talk about all of those pieces that are very crucial and still apply for the AI. The assumption around it, I tell you the way that I described it this past weekend for a few friends was, before we knew that when you are in your house and you want to secure your house, you secure your doors, your windows, yes, pun intended, and put a security system around your house. And the expectation is that if you have a sensor in your door, in your window, if the window opens, something triggers the alarm. However, now we should expect that the risk will come from everywhere. So I don't want to go as aggressive as someone break through the wall, which is possible. However, we should assume that also something that look totally legit. We talked about resources and stuff. The electric company person that come and knock on my door that looks totally legit and totally safe and trusted, because it has the uniforms, it has the IDs, it knows my account information, it knows everything that requires me to trust them. And suddenly when they enter my house, I don't call them hacker. We refer to them as bad actors, because those are individuals or companies or whatever that have a negative and bad intent when they come. So I'm not saying to be scared from everything, but be prepared for everything. And with this aspect, nothing has changed from the foundation. You want to make sure that identity. You have identity for users, you have identity for agents, you have gatekeeping, you have multi-admin approvals for specific activities. You do containers, you do VMs, and for things that you need to do for sandbox environment to make sure that you don't break anything. And make sure that there are controls and conditional access are all applicable for whatever you need to do, whatever the employee needs to do, and whatever the agent needs to do. You don't want to give anyone too much access. You want to keep it as close as possible. But overall, it's the same approach that we had all the time. It's just elevating it to a new language for AI.
Excellent. And so, I mean, least privilege, all the basics, all the foundational building blocks. It's really just applying that now, knowing that there's there's agents out there that are trying to get access to the same thing. Is there anything that that you've seen that surprised you though about the way that people are approaching AI security, or anything that's kind of different than it's the same playbook, we're just applying it in a slightly different way?
Surprising, I didn't see much besides the hesitation of people of like, let me wait. And that scares me more than surprise me, in the sense of like some experts in the field, even and customers in the user space, taking the let me wait and see.
Yeah.
And this is the concern, because the bad actors are not waiting. They're actually jumping on the opportunity right away. The thing is that when you look at change management and you looking at the new structure and the new challenges in the new AI lens, is to think about the expectations that you have from a human versus from an AI. So a human, I would expect to work for 8 hours, 9 hours a day, to see them doing business hours within the time zone. They usually access whatever is within their regular job, email, Teams, and things like that. Maybe few SharePoint folders that they're using for the team. Agent is 24/7. Agent is something that you are not measuring especially when we're looking at the zero trust framework. It's not measuring on number of hours or the time of business hours. You're not checking based on speed, because agent can be super, super fast, especially unless it's a QA agent. All of those pieces, you really want to make sure that you are adapting your views and your sensors in order to get the data signals to the new era of AI agents. I know everyone's saying AI agents, talk about AI agents all the time, but the idea around it is step one is to understand what is an AI agent. Everyone talk about what AI agents actually do, what's their authority, why they can introduce risks to organization, and how they can save time as well. And then understand how you put the guardrails around it, and also the data to monitor it, to make sure that they don't exceed and they don't cause any issues.
It does seem like there is still the layer of like mystique about some of these things too, and maybe that's leading into this comment that you made about people waiting. I can also fully empathize with folks going back to the signal versus the noise, right? And the providers of tools. This is the business, right? They want to hype things up. They're in an extremely loud space with a lot of noise there. They want to stand out too, and so there's a ton of hype around it. They also want to make sure that they're driving up AI adoption with their customers, right? And so if you put your MSP hat on, and we shift things over more towards the, I guess, security vendors. How do you have any advice for folks in terms of everyone's bolting AI on to everything? And you can sit back. I mean, you were saying, you don't necessarily want to wait because when is the time going to be where everything is clear, right? You got to make some choices, but it's also, I can understand how people are a little hesitant to build on sand. Things are changing so often.
Okay. Jonathan, is it almost the question, if I could put it in there, for years, we've had the Sunil Yu come on and he introduced to us many years ago the cyber defense matrix, for those that know of Sunil. And the reason he developed it when he was the chief security scientist at Bank of America was because everybody was bolting on these words. Lior, if you don't know Sunil, it was, whether it was a ZTNA or whether it was machine learning or whatever, right? And he developed this framework to literally cut out the marketing jargon. And I'm just curious, Jonathan, is that kind of where your head here is? How do you cut through the, our AI flavor versus reality? Like, is it really making a difference, Lior? Because, every software company says, we're powered by AI, and every software, there was the SaaS apocalypse there for a while. How do you cut through the noise?
It's a tough one. It's a very difficult one, right? Because first of all, from a marketing perspective, I would shift the conversation to every MSP from a bolt-on to built-in. It's very important because bolt-on, it's the way that I see it when you speak about it. We added it after the fact. Versus built-in, it's something that during the design and architecture, you actually put all of the AI adoption. Now, AI is cool, don't get me wrong. However, there are some stuff that are not necessarily not relevant for AI. It's things that you really want to focus on what is impacting your customers. So let's look at a scenario. Incident investigation. Right. So when there is an incident investigation and a defender is notifying you that there is a data signal for a hack or possible breach, usually as a researcher, security researchers in the MSP side, you go look into it and start looking the audit trail and try to identify what is confiscated and whatever you need to quarantine and what do you need to do. This takes time. And this time is very crucial, especially for small businesses, that one security hack can actually take down the business. They don't have a backup. They don't have boots on the ground. They don't have cyber security insurance. They don't have all of those capabilities. They have a smaller customer base. So, and especially as an MSSP, when you are looking at all of those type of customers, you have so many customers that you manage. You're looking for a standard approach to investigate. AI that allows you to pull all of the information in advance, pull all of the data signals, pull all of the stuff that you should consider and provide you with recommendations of what to look at and make you more informed to make your decisions is what's going to be valuable, right? Does AI is cool to rewrite your emails? Absolutely. Is it something that's going to change your life? No, it's going to save you some few minutes. Absolutely, and going to make your email sounds a lot more professional. However, from a productivity perspective, this is what we are looking. We are looking at the pain points for our customers and how we can help them address it as soon as possible and make sure that the environment is safe so they can actually focus on growing their own business.
Lior, do you look at when people are like, how can I use AI? Where's my best use case of AI as an example? If you were just Lior, the consultant, are you looking, for example, large data sets of information versus anecdotal type things that may not have processes? Are there some kind of, structure and framework that you think of, whether it's actually been written down or in your mind, like, we have 2 data points. That's not a good use case for AI versus we have millions of pieces of data. That's now we're starting to get on the fairway. Is there a certain way you look at it?
Both. So yes, when you have a lot of data, you need to clean the data, you need to sanitize the data, you need to look at the data that it's relevant for what you're looking to do. So this is step one. However, when I look at AI and automations and processes and agents, the first thing that I look is what is the tasks or motions that takes me the longest amount of time, but provide me the least amount of value from return on investment. So also from the what is urgent but takes some time, as we talked about in incident investigation perspective. Those things, I believe that freeing up the humans to do a more humans work and let AI automate a lot of processes that are important but can be repeated and by AI and managed by AI, it's a lot more beneficial for us. Now, and this is, I don't know if we want to take it to this conversation right now, but we're talking about also tokens, right? It's another consideration from a cost perspective. When we are looking at an IT pro that doing onboarding of a device and bill about 45 minutes, and for 45 minutes for $200 an hour versus using an AI to automate it within 5 minutes. However, the token will be $400. Is it worth it? Right? And this is where you get into the cost balance in a sense of like, cool, yes, can I do everything super fast? Absolutely. Is there hallucination and we should not trust all of the data? Absolutely. So there is a human piece of it. However, there is also the cost aspect of it, and that's something that you see in the news everywhere.
That's a really good point, Jonathan. I promise last thing, I'll keep it.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Alan, I'll ask you this. It's, when we were talking to Ian Barkin, this is like a great example, onboarding, right? Mm-hmm. Automation might be the answer for onboarding. You don't even need an agentic AI solution. It might be a combination of automation and MPC, MCP server as an example. I'm just throwing this out there, Alan. But it seems so reminiscent. You and I met each other in the early 2000s. Gosh, I feel like we're talking what Lior just said. I feel like we're talking RMM all over, right? How can we take our engineers and get them out of the mundane, things like patching every server and get them to higher level things? Is it rhyming a bit to you in some aspects?
Yeah, I really like this conversation because it is. And there's complexities that are being introduced here that really compound security problems. I noticed what Eric said here in the chat. He mentioned something about how AI is exposing, access problems that have existed for a long period of time. And like back in the RMM days, we have to figure out the right solution to put in place, as these AI agents now have access to everything that the humans that run the machines do in some cases. It's definitely a question I want to dig into a little bit deeper as the podcast goes on with Lior. But yeah, I relate very well, Andrew.
Yeah, exactly. Got it. Who would ever think, Jonathan, access control would be important, right?
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, it's interesting. I also saw Eric had a comment, this last one. the big data part is a huge piece of the difference between SMB and enterprise. SMB simply has a lot less happening there. I think what your interactions and your approach looks like in terms of your clients and working with them on this stuff, it probably depends a lot about where they're at, right, and what their actual needs are. Lior, I'm curious if you have any advice about the AI kind of consultancy part of it. We've heard a lot of the talk. I mean, if we look back the last few years with the rise of selling specialized security services, that was kind of the big moneymaker for everybody. Get on the gravy train, like sell your security expertise. And this conversation's been a little bit different because we hear now, or at least I've seen conversations of people saying this, where people say, hey, you don't want to be the department of no. A lot of people are actually wanting to come to you and say, hey, like we're hearing there's all this capability we can get. We can be more efficient with AI. And if you become the person who says, well, no, you can't do any of that. We have to do it the right way. Then there's going to be other people who are in their ear not taking that tone. So any kind of advice about should folks still be really hammering through the security part of it, or do we need to change the conversation, be more enablers, but say, hey, while we're doing this, let's make sure it's set up the right way so it doesn't cause more risk and damage down the line?
I think the latter. Now, you do need to understand, and I again, what I'm about to say, it's definitely as Lior, the personal person, and because in security, we always preach to be 100% focus and cover and make sure that everything's perfect. I would go after the scrappy way of adapting stuff faster. Maybe it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to reduce risk. Okay, so the idea around it is not only to jump on the latest wagon of let me show you how to automate and everything. Oh, look at that, Mr. and Mrs. MSP. I will sell you a solution that you just click on a button and everything is perfect. That's not what people are looking for. The piece around it is to make sure that you actually understand what is the MSP and what are the customer needs. So what is actually the pain points? That's where you want to prioritize. You can sit and prioritize whatever you want, but is the customers and your MSPs going to see value out of it? And this is where you want to do. You also don't want to focus on let me automate and replace all of your employees. It's let me automate and bring you more insights to empower your employees. So even if you have everyone, I came from the intern space, right? So everyone had the config manager, SCCM expert that when they left on holiday, that's it. You're like, you blocked. If a policy or something breaks, no one knows how to fix it. In this scenario, AI allows you to, even if you're a junior in the beginning of your career, you're able to address more complex items and more items that requires a lot more experience and specialty using AI as a consultant for you to support you and help you to address things. So it's I would look at it as understanding what the customer needs, first of all. So, and this is where GTM leads technology. So to focus on to understand what you need to address versus what you're building. So think about it from a perspective of like, I pick up on Tesla in every podcast. So I apologize, Elon. But if you drive a Tesla and you drive it in the streets of Florida, going to visit Andrew, I would assume the roads are pretty good. So you focus on the user experience, the AC, and all of those things. However, if you take the same Tesla and drive it to Africa, to the safari, all of the potholes, and it's going to be super complex, you're going to need like air suspension. So you're going to need something else that's going to give you the user experience. So the user experience, and the user will appreciate the user experience enhancement based on their pain points versus the pain points that you already identified. So we can do one size fits most, which is the Tesla with all of the fancy stuff. But when you get into a unique scenarios, we talk about government, we talk about public companies, we talk about healthcare or whatever it is, this is where you're entering into a new challenge that you need to adapt your solution to what they need. Sorry, Elon.
No, thanks for that, Lior.
All right, Steve.
All right. Hey, Lior. Good to see you again. Thanks for coming up and seeing us. previously, we used to tell everyone that security was the fastest moving part of the fastest moving sector in the world, IT. I don't think that's the same anymore. It's now AI. So regularly, we are outgunned, right? The good guys have to be right once or every time, but the bad guys only have to be right once. How is an MSP supposed to keep up with the speed with which the attackers can move when we have rules, for example?
You're asking extremely difficult question. I don't think there is a good answer for this because you're correct. AI is moving super fast. Humans cannot catch up with it. There is a limit of how much the human brain can handle skills, and apparently humans do need to sleep. And AI is learning how to mimic humans, how to make it to imply that it's a human interaction. However, it's an AI interaction, which is a lot more confusing, especially for people that are not as experienced and not as trained. With that being said, I do work for a large company, and this is where I would actually put the bet on my employer, because I would trust that larger companies have the resources and the infrastructure to build and adapt to the AI changes on a regular basis versus a independent MSP that doesn't have the resources. You cannot take a security 6 people MSP or 20 people MSP and assign 1 or 2 people just to learn all day and just read and read and read. They need to implement, they need to teach, they need to deploy. So you do want to reduce the risk in a sense of leveraging a large companies such as my employer, Microsoft, to build the trust with the frontier models, to make sure that they are reducing the risks as much as possible, giving you as many tools as possible, so allow you to focus as an MSP on your customer-specific challenges. And this is the same thing that when we talked about when we move from on-prem to cloud native. When you are on-prem, you manage your own server, you're responsible for patching your own server, in all of those pieces. And when we moved to cloud native, we trusted on the large companies to actually secure their cloud environments and do a better job than you can do on your server level.
So I think that's an extremely good point. What I'm hearing is more of the as a service type things, platform as a service, software as a service, are going to be backed by enterprise, and they're going to have a little bit more of a defense capability than, say, something you've built internally or something you've vibe coded. So what I took from that was, listen, we are outgunned. They are moving really very quickly, but the larger organizations that can back things like that are going to have better defense, better learning, better offense than something small. Yeah.
That's expectations. Yes. If you're going to use a security company versus secure your own house, so yes, you're going to have better chances.
Okay, so that leads into my next question then. So there are frontier models, right? We all know about Fable, we all know about Sol, but things like DeepSeek and Kimi K3 are starting to open weight a bunch of their models. How do you think we will see MSPs and smaller organizations approach the conversation between a frontier paid model, very expensive tokens, and maybe an open weight model that you could run on, admittedly, a lot of expensive GPUs, but there are some organizations that can run that. How do you see the two of those combining and going forward in business in the near future?
If I were an MSP owner, I would focus on what I do right for my customers. When my customers are hiring me as an MSP, they are hiring me to provide them the most secure environment. Using some of the models that you mentioned don't give me a lot of trust into the data, right? Forget about the data, because those AIs can definitely generate really good responses. I'm not doubting it. The question is where your data is going to. Where is your private information is going to? If you're uploading all of your security policies to AI because you want to do an evaluation of it, right? If there is I'm not suggesting in any of the companies, but if maybe they can see it as a vulnerability and actually add it to a database of, like, this is a vulnerability for this specific company. So if we need to look for a backdoor attack in the future, here you go. They clearly, as Jonathan mentioned, they don't patch their device, and then they still use Windows 95 from this. And let's take advantage of this one, right? So can I say that those models are not secure? I cannot say that. I'm not in a position to speak about it. I can speak about what that large companies that are follow specific standards, government, regulatories, and all of those pieces are more trusted. Yes. Is it more expensive? Absolutely yes. Is it safer? I would assume so. And bottom line, when you're securing, and again, I always look at it as securing my house, I will always prefer to pay a little bit more to get the quality, because this is the stuff that you don't save money. You can save money on swag when you go to a conference. That's easy because people go. But when you get to a level of you saving, you investing something that's going to impact your life, even this chair, you actually invest in something quality because you want to enjoy it and you want to benefit from it.
It's a good one.
Stephen, can I ask you and Alan a quick question here? And that is, starting with you, Stephen, do you anticipate at some point getting a client that goes, Kimi K3 is pretty damn good. I'm reading all the ratings. I'm going to run it internally. I'm going to air gap it. I'm not going to, we're using it for all our in-house data. For you, Steve, it's all our vintage wines and all the years we look at all those different recipes, whatever it may be. Do you anticipate one day getting that pushback from the customer that goes, pretty damn good, pretty compelling, we're going that way, Steve?
I do. Yeah. The challenge I have, so I have a specific architecture firm in mind. They have a large, very, very powerful GPU cluster right now to do rendering. That's what they do. They could easily convert that or increase it to run local AI models locally in their environment. The challenge that they have is, who knows how to do that? Who knows how to run? And I know I'm talking Kimi K3 now because it's top of mind. Right. But at some point, somebody's going to have to know how to install, configure, and care and feed, maintain a local AI setup. Now, the argument we're going to have to make, or the discussion we're going to have is that plus all the power, plus all the GPUs you got to purchase and maintain, plus the person that's doing that, is that less expensive than paying, say, Anthropic for Claude tokens or OpenAI? We don't know that yet. It might very well be. I think we all understand that the subscription models are being very heavily subsidized right now, and that $20 a month, for example, or whatever the Teams plans cost right now, is not going to stay. There's no chance. So I think when that bubble bursts, the subsidization bubble bursts, I do think people are going to consider running AI, which has entrenched itself as a valuable tool, internally when their cost model changes.
Interesting. Yeah, the CapEx, right? How about you, Alan? Do you anticipate this at some point?
Yeah, similar. There's a lot of movement to the cloud, and then there's some organizations that came back and moved data back on-prem and settled on hybrid environments. When it comes to AI now, we're seeing questions about the building of a digital twin to really make sure that all of the intellectual property and the methodology of businesses are kept locally. But we're hearing about it too, with building survivability into a model if there's a disaster, considering cost models and security are big issues. So I think there's justification for both, and we're seeing the questions come up.
Yeah, interesting. All right, Steve.
Yeah, no worries. Lior, the biggest question we get by a mile right now is, what are my employees putting in AI? What AI are they using? How are they using it? How can we stop them? And the market currently doesn't really have a well-defined solution for small to medium business to answer those questions. So when you see AI and companies using shadow AI, which is just the newest flavor of shadow IT, is this A, a threat and we need to be worried about it, or B, an opportunity for MSPs where we can come in and say, you need governance. This is a thing. Even though the tools may not be there yet, do you see an opportunity here for increased policy, increased procedure for protection to kind of at least stem the flow of shadow AI right now?
You are touching a super hot topic that I also focus on, and I spend a lot of energy on. Shadow AI shows you that there is a demand, but it's also introduced a massive risk to the organization. Because you should assume that every employee in your company will look to do everything faster and easier. And if it's analyzing an Excel file that they usually have, their financial reports, and they like, oh, I need to meet with the CFO or show something. Let me pull it out on Let me upload it to one of the AI systems online and do analysis. Game one, yes, you got really good stuff. You're going to impress your CFO. However, when the information leaks somehow, or the model is being trained and your competitor is actually querying and getting your information, it's a big no-no, right? So you did benefit from this specific meeting. You showed up really well. So what you need to do is not to block only AI. If you're blocking AI and access to those questionable models, you want to give them something available. And a lot of companies are blocking access to and centralize around one type of AI, right? I am a huge fan. I'm lucky to work for Microsoft because I get to test a lot of cool stuff that the company is developing, and some really crazy stuff. You saw in the news, they announced Microsoft Scout, absolutely a game changer. All of those capabilities are powerful tools that are contained within your environment. And this is what it's important. You really want to make sure that you don't just tell them don't do it. You give them an alternative and a secure alternative. And over there, because they're going to figure out a way. If you're going to block the computer, they're going to go on their cell phones. If you're going to block on cell phones, they're going to bring like the kids' computer at home.
The DLP question.
They're going to figure out a way, because the human's nature is to do less and gain more, right? So it's normal. So you want to give them the tools, you want to give them, and the most important thing right now for MSPs is the training, is the awareness, is the go-to-market. Is not only let me build those capabilities and give them, and yes, Copilot is a phenomenal tool in my opinion. It's also educate them what are the possibilities and what are the risks around it. Similar to how we do security training for employees and we do the phishing emails and all of those pieces, you want to train them as much as possible to show them that it's not safe out there, and you want to play it as safe as possible. And if you play by the rules and the company gives you all of the tools to do it, you're going to help the company be safer and you're going to keep your employment. So it's two benefits that are very, very crucial. And it's our job in the cybersecurity space, in the IT management space, to show the path and teach and educate, and not just sit in the back and just build cool tools. You have to educate them what are the risks of shadow AI and what damage it can cause.
Cool, thanks. Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, sure. Lior, nice to be able to chat with you about some of these deep questions that help us as MSPs, especially with the broader vertical markets that we support. I want to shift a little bit to the data stewardship side or the data side, because there's a lot of questions about securing AI, but I think one of the big issues for a lot of organizations is what AI is being allowed to access in the user's context. Because if you give an AI assistant access to an organization's data, it can find and connect to information faster than any human could. And so a poorly governed permission structure is a big problem. But I guess the question really is, are organizations thinking enough about AI as an identity and data access problem and not just an AI security problem? And what should MSPs do today, like around permissions, data classification, before they start deploying AI, co-work agents, that kind of thing broadly?
I think you're touching the most important piece of preparation for AI. And we're talking about.
They found him. They got him.
Did Lior?
It was Mythos.
AI took him down.
Important piece.
There you are. Lior, can you rewind 10 seconds? Like just after Alan finished the question, you said it's the most important part and you froze.
Yes. Okay. Did I freeze?
Yeah. Right.
Back.
This is the most important part.
Yeah. Gosh, I love Copilot.
Yeah, I gave you guys the winning lottery numbers for today. Too bad. So yeah, the biggest piece is actually data and DLP. You want to make sure that the data is secure. The approach around that you save something on your OneDrive or SharePoint and you only know how to get there and you have the access to it is not real anymore. If the data is not classified correctly, it can have access. You shared the file a long time ago, and you forgot to discontinue the share, and you didn't put a time limitation around it, and someone has access to it. All of these pieces, we clearly talk about, I think in many of my sessions, especially with docs, we talked about the scenario of like an employee that go to Copilot and find out HR data of compensation, right? The compensation is the least of my worries. All of the other pieces are a lot more important from an R&D perspective to financial data of the company or any other things, or even security vulnerabilities that were identified by the organization but have yet to be addressed. So this is the stuff that someone created a paper to inform the CTO or CISO about opportunity and risk and something that they need to prioritize, or even send an email, and suddenly the AI that they're running getting access to it, and done deal. Everyone are available. Everyone know what it is. So first of all, yes, data. In Microsoft, you have the Purview that are able to categorize data and make sure that you are saving the data. Second is access rights. You want to evaluate all of the access. Who has access? You never want to put unlimited time access. You also want to limit it. Third is identity. So some companies are still giving their employees admin rights. No, don't do it. Follow standard rights, right? So give them the least privilege, give them the least access that they require. You don't want to stop them that every 5 seconds they're going to ask for an exception from the IT. But on the same time, you don't need to give them access for tools that are completely irrelevant. If you are sitting in, in HR, you don't need access to sales data or things like that. So this is where you want to focus on identity and kind of understand what the boundaries of each role. In order to do it, you actually need to go and understand the job. You need to understand the day-to-day job. This is where the learnings that needs to be done. It's not just assuming that the marketing person is going to focus only on LinkedIn post. They do need data. They do need access. So you need to understand each job. What are the rules? And also, when you follow up on the signals and do an audit, you're able to identify tasks or access that they did that is not normal to the role. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's required, but it's going to give you something to more focus on versus just going deep into audit data that thousands and thousands and thousands of lines. You're able to filter it to what is more important.
Thank you, Lior. To add to that, I got kind of a two-part question. Because I think a lot of it goes back to the legacy way we built, as clients, end users, MSPs, back to the, original RMM days. And traditionally, like if we've given users access to something, it's because we trust that the human is going to access the data appropriately. But when an AI agent inherits that user's permission, then of course the agent can search, correlate, and get a lot larger amount of data and do with that data what it's been asked to do. So kind of looking down the road 12 months, how should security professionals, think about that model? In other words, the agents having the same access as the user, is that a safe security boundary? Or do we need to be thinking about agents as like a separate security principle? And with that in mind, what would you recommend is the best certification from Microsoft that could help us get the thinking around that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there is a separate session that we need to do completely on identity for agent versus users, because this is a completely new space. The answer is absolutely separated. There's no doubt around it, because we don't have any controls. Let's assume that someone installing OpenClaw on their machines using the credentials.
But CoWork's not separate today, right?
Can you say it again?
But CoWork's not separate today. A lot of CoWork models from the frontier, from the frontier models. I think we lost Lior again.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think you guys live. I don't know. Maybe it's my internet provider just doesn't like that they talk about security so much. But the big piece is to separate the identities. You're gonna see more stuff coming up with more news coming up from the industry about identity for agents versus identity for humans and for users. We don't want open cloud, that someone run open cloud on their machine to leverage the credentials of a user to do activities and create folders and copy files and things like that the user didn't initiate or didn't want to do themselves. I tell you what, with AI, you ask about certification, and there are certifications around cloud and AI security engineers. I think it's SC 500 or 400. However, the big thing about AI, it's training democratization. So it's everyone getting the data right now. There are so many trainings. There's so much data available online. Unlike before, you had to go to college or you had to do special certifications. There is so much information. So regardless if you are a beginner, you have access to this information. Microsoft releases a lot of it, a lot of our partners, a lot of security experts in the field, AI experts, cloud, they all release a lot of information. So it's not about if the data is available, it's how much brain space and time you have to consume it. And this is where you can actually use AI to help you focus on what are the topics and sessions that you need to learn about. And if you're looking at identity, this is where you want to focus. But the first thing that I would do is to, instead of looking forward, is to look back, to look at all of the data that you have in place, to look at everything that you saved for the past 7 years that have been sitting somewhere in the dusty folder, and make sure that those are secure by default. And you are reducing the privilege access, because if someone didn't access this file for 5 years, let's block it. Let's make it confidential, reduce the risk for it, and then create a training mechanism or culture mechanism that every time that a new data set is being created, is it a Word file, a picture, an application, it's already meeting the criteria of the DLP of like, where do you want to classify this data?
Lior, I wrote down, like, would you come back and do a session on that very important topic? Like you said, the identity and the access and is the most critical. And we could do a whole session on it. Is that something you think you'd come back on?
Yes, we absolutely can do it. And I'm doing some self-promotion here, but Dax and I are starting a podcast on the AI later this week.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. Yeah.
It's called Trust Before the Hype. So TBH. Trust before hype. So you focus on data security. It's going to be slightly different from what here. Here I love the deep dive discussions. It's going to be more about like the day-to-day challenges. So more than happy to even cover it and do a comeback in the future. If you're going to continue hosting me, I'm gonna take the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're grateful you came, and we will definitely do a part 2 here and just really get deep into that area, because I think it'd be really beneficial for the MSPs out there to hear your perspective on best practices for that. And certainly I'm sure we'll see you at Write a Boom, not only doing, I know you have your own session, but in Kelvin's SIP full day session, where that is a big focus around their managing of purview, policy, et cetera. So that one is already starting to get quite a few people registered for it. So anyway, I'll just put it there if anybody wants to go and see it. So Lior, on behalf of the Cyber Club, we're thrilled that you came. Thank you so much. And Stephen, Alan, Jonathan, as always, appreciate you guys co-hosting. Any closing comments, Lior, and wishing you a wonderful day.
I tell you what, recently I changed the angle of my camera, and I have this cow all the time. Now, recently this cow has been with me for the past 22 years, no joke, has been, no matter what angle you look at it, it's going to look at you. This is the assumption that I want you to take from a security perspective. Even if you don't see the attacker, they're always looking at you.
Fair. Well said, and way to close it out. Everybody out there, have a fantastic week. We'll see you next Monday. Be safe and make it a great day. Take care.
If you're in the Write a Boom community but not in our Discord yet, you're missing where the real conversation happens. Join community.writeaboom.com to access cyber call discussions, upcoming CPFs, boom camps, and early access to what's coming next. If you want to stay close to what's actually happening in the MSP security space, I'll see you there.